Hello, everybody. Today I'm with Blanche, Laff, Lourie. Uh, and hi, Blanche, how are you?
Hi, Neil. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank
Good.
you for doing this.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay, I often like to start with asking people about their favorite teacher, because we all have had some of these people. Who was your favorite teacher at Gordon?
Oh, my favorite teacher of all time was Alice Schwartz. She was wonderful. She was patient and kind. I struggled with trigonometry, and I sought out her help almost daily. But she was so good, and she didn't mind going over things over and over again. And I just, I still struggled with it. I still struggled, but I eventually passed it. Not in her class, unfortunately, but I did pass it. So she was just great, so approachable and everything. So I loved her dearly. I loved her.
Yeah, I loved her smile.
Yeah,
It was so warm.
she was. She was indeed.
Yeah. Um, Now, you really weren't that confident when you were in high school. At least that's what you've told me. What would you say? How did that come about? What do you think it was?
Well, I don't think I was a natural born student. I struggled. And I didn't really get a lot of support from my mother. From my dad, I did, but she used to say I wasn't trying hard enough. That was the problem. I wasn't trying hard enough. And she never made me feel, like I really was. I didn't have a lot of confidence. She made me feel that I could always do better. I could always do better. And at some point, I just said, what's the point? She's never going to be happy with me. And I knew I wanted to earn my credits to get, Regents diploma. That was very important, go to college. But there were other areas that I just gave up trying because I said, what's the point? I'm probably not going to succeed anyway. And so that's what happened in high school. It wasn't good, but that's just what happened. I just, I gave up trying. I gave
It's so helpful when we have parents who are more supportive, but that isn't always the case.
No,
But in the final analysis, it comes down to us and what do
right,
we do.
right.
And you went off to college and you found a different spirit. What happened? How did
I
that come
did.
about?
Well, I went 1,000 miles away. I got away from my helicopter mom, if you want to call it that. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own. I met a lot of great kids from all over the country. And I just, I met farm kids, I met kids with all kinds of, interests. And I opened up and I was more willing to join clubs and I got really friendly. I made a lot of friends and I had more confidence in, I think, because I was standing on my own 2 feet for the first time. And it was a tremendous learning experience, tremendous. So I learned in many ways. I learned in many ways and I grew up. And when I graduated, I went right to graduate school. I never went home again. So I went from one thing right into the next because I knew I could never go home again, like that story and it was wonderful. So
Uh, it's an interesting thing because um, you say you can never go home again, but I know your mom wanted you to come
oh,
home.
she did. She wanted me to go to Hunter College. So I would stay at home and she would probably stand over me while I did my studying. And I said, no, no. Once you leave, you really can't come home. It's just not the same. You've
You,
changed and they don't recognize it.
you made a great choice.
Yeah, thanks.
Uh,
I think so.
so now, after you graduated, you ended up going to Massachusetts. How did that happen?
Well, I was going to school in Rhode Island. I got my master's from Rhode Island College. And a bunch of the girls that I had, became friendly with through a friend of my brother's said, let's go to Boston. There's lots of activity there. We know all the guys in Providence and there's nobody interested here. So we went to a singles dance at a temple in Newton, which is a suburb of Boston.
Right.
And I met my husband the very first, they had monthly dances. I met him the first night. I kept going back many times to meet other people, but we clicked. So we eventually got married and I lived in Boston and finished my master's degree. And then we lived it for a year in Boston, and they came out to the suburbs and joined a temple to connect, put down some roots. And I met like so many people. You know, he didn't have a need to network, I did. So I met women who were like older sisters, mothers, grandmothers, and everybody embraced me. And I felt like I had like come home, you know, I had really come home. So it was great. It was really great.
And who was a person that you met, say, in during there? Anybody that comes to mind?
I met a lot of people, a lot of special friends, two of whom had passed away. But one girl is my friend Elaine, who is the children's librarian in our town library here. I don't live in Milford anymore. I live in a little town called Hopedale. And she's wonderful. She's just very sweet and down to earth. And we're just like best friends. We just, you know, I love her to pieces. She loves little kids, and she's a prolific reader like I am. And so I found, you know, a soulmate, kind of, you know, a girl soulmate, you know. So she's wonderful, you know.
That's nice. Now, when you were at the temple, did you join the sisterhood?
I did. I joined the sisterhood. It was a 3-part sisterhood. It was sisterhood connected also to Hadassah and B'nai B'rith. We joined together, you know, because we were a small group. And, you know, I was urged to take a position, which I did. And my arm was twisted a little bit, but I worked my way up the ranks, and eventually I became president. You know, by then I was not really cocky, but comfortable, very comfortable. And I joined, and I was a good fundraiser, and they nominated me. I was blown away, but they nominated me for Woman of the Year. You know, one year, which was a thrill. I have a plaque on my wall. It was a good time. It was the best. Those 40 years were when I made my friends, almost friends for life, you know, and it was wonderful. I just loved what I did. I really did. I loved what I did.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Now, you also have a son and a daughter.
I do.
And there have been some issues, and
Right.
You've dealt with them head on. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I have 2 children. My daughter is older, and there's 5.5 years between them. They both had early developmental delays. My daughter's issues were, they called it, well, developmental delays. They were, you know, all across the board, you know. And we got her into an early intervention program, a little late though, but she did go into an early childhood issue. And we resolved these probably by the time she was 6, but she had some lingering reading problems. And then my son came along, and of course the door was already open to seek out the right doctors. And we went in, and his problems were more intense than hers. He didn't have just early developmental. He had a lot of issues, physical, toilet training, speaking. And so they diagnosed him with Asperger's eventually. And the programs that he went through in high school and were phenomenal, you know, the early, you know, it's terrific. So I'm very happy. He got a great education. He really did. So
you provided them both.
Lots of love and support. Oh, absolutely. I was very, very invested in both of my children, spent lots of time reading to them and doing things with them. And you know, I'm not going to take credit for who they are, because they did the work, but I was the support behind it. So, you know, I love the way they turned out. That's all I can say. I'm very happy.
You continue to make sure that they are.
I do my best. I do my best. Yeah.
And about 4 years ago, your husband had some kind of an incident and was, you know, sort of threw you for a loop. And you sort of got to a place where you really weren't like so interested in stuff, but you got out of it. How did you do that?
I did. Well, you know, it was just right before our 50th reunion, and my husband received a diagnosis of early onset dementia, which, you know, sent me reeling, because I had nothing but challenges in my life, problems to solve. And I said, oh my God, not another big issue to handle. And I kind of sunk down into a deep hole, and And I just stayed home. I couldn't face anything. I didn't want to do anything. The things I used to love to do, I just lost touch with everything. And I got some professional counseling, and she said, you've been a caregiver. You've given so much of yourself to everybody else. It's time to get yourself back. So I started doing the things I liked forcefully. She said I had to do these every day. It was the only way I would work. So I started walking again and reading and knitting. I had given up knitting, and I started to give up knitting. And then my friend Elaine, who was the librarian, she said, oh, they have a mitten tree in the library where people donate knitted goods for, needy people. And so all of a sudden, when I started feeling better, took several months, I realized I had an opportunity to pay it forward. I was feeling better, and I said, now I got myself back. Now it's time to move on. So I started knitting and donating my scarves to the Salvation Army at Christmas every year. And I've never looked back. I'm so very happy. And I'm in a better place to deal with whatever comes my way. So I needed to get my head straight before I could move on. So, and I'm watching my husband very carefully. And
Fortunately, he's been doing okay.
he's been doing okay. He's been doing
Right.
okay. And I'm living again. I'm living. And that was
Which is the
really
most important thing now.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Now,
it is.
we talked about the possibility of having dinner with different people.
Right.
One of those people is someone who we all know,
All right.
Connie McHugh.
Connie McHugh. I love her dearly. I just spoke to her on the phone the other day, and we talk probably once every other week. She calls, I call. And really, we don't talk that much about the old days because we've moved on. We do talk about things we remember, but I can hear her laughter makes me smile. When I hear her laugh on the phone, I smile. She just brings the sun out on a cloudy day. She has that. I just love her to pieces. She's just a wonderful friend, and she's just very special to me.
I'm so happy that you have that, and we all remember Connie so fondly.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as we've talked, it becomes very clear how resilient you have been, and it's very impressive, and you should be very proud of that.
Thank you.
And so I thank you very much for doing this. This was really a delight.
I'm
Thank you.
so glad. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.